I definitely think that Starfield as a game is definitely a little bit overrated. I mean, it's not like the best game I've ever played. It's kind of like your stereotypical by the books, like obvious kind of game where you're going to travel to these planets and you're going to go to this area and do this thing and do that thing and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like I hate the game, it's just that it definitely has been a bit overrated. It's no.
You are about to experience the James Rambling Show, hosted by James Patton.
Hello, welcome back to the James Ramblin' Show for yet another episode. And in today's episode, I am actually going to be talking about quite a few things today. And I did actually try and record this yesterday, but I noticed that there was a couple things that I didn't really talk about in the episode, so it wasn't very interesting for me to kind of upload. So in today's episode, I'm going to be kind of doing that, and it's recording this at 10 in the morning. So in today's episode, what are we even talking about? Well, I did actually play this game called Starfield, and I'll give my thoughts on that. But before I even dive into that kind of stuff, right, what is Starfield even about? So it's kind of like this sci-fi game that came out in September, and I've only just came around to it as of late because I got the Game Pass on my new account. So I was kind of curious about this game because everybody's saying, oh, it's like super good, the game is so good, and the best thing ever. And a lot of people do that all the time, like they exaggerate the heck out of a game. And if you know, about a while back on the show, I did actually talk about Skyrim and how I was like, oh man, I really enjoyed that game and stuff like that. And you know what I mean? I got really into the game, and I said, I was playing it too much and everything like that. So that once it comes to like Starfield, right? I definitely think that Starfield as a game is definitely a little bit overrated. I mean, it's not like the best game I've ever played. It's kind of like your stereotypical by the books, like obvious kind of game where you're going to travel to these planets and you're going to go to this area and do this thing and do that thing and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like I hate the game, it's just that it definitely has been a bit overrated. It's not the best thing ever, like people are complaining it like. But to kind of like give you a bit of context as to like what people are saying about it, right? So it got a 7 out of 10 on IGN, a 5 out of 5 PC World, and a 75% on PC Gamer. And somebody says here that Starfield is a masterpiece. I'm about 50 hours into it now, and I can say with confidence that it's a fantastic game. If you played a Bethesda game before, then you know what to expect. So they're saying that, right? I've only played like a few hours of this game. So there's another person kind of saying that as a long life fan of it, space exploration and sci-fi fiction, I've been eagerly waiting for the arrival of Bethesda's Starfield for what it feels like a cosmic age, and now that I've had the privilege of diving into stellar adventure, I should say, I can confidently say this exceeded my astronomical expectations in any way possible, right? So I don't need to go on and on and on and on about that review, but pretty much with this whole entire thing, people say, Bethesda has done it again, and they've reached the stars, reaching for the stars here. Starfield is nothing short of a space-faring masterpiece that left me awestruck and eager for more. This game is a true gem in the gaming universe, right? Blah 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 blah. They're just like stunning visuals, epic soundtrack, engaging storytelling, infinite exploration, customization galore, right? They're saying it's like a masterpiece, but I mean, when it comes to like talking about here, the engaging storytelling. I mean, the story isn't that engaging. It's just like you play as this character, and you go to these planets, and you have to go after these. I think there was also mentions of like how there was these artifacts you had to receive, and there was also like this is kind of related to the game, but there was this entire controversy where people were saying, "Oh, there's pronouns in Starfield and it's like super bad and all that kind of stuff." Even though, right, when you're playing a game, you select a certain character and you're supposed to play a certain character. So if you're like, oh, pronouns are bad and all that kind of stuff. It's like the weirdest way to complain about something because there's obviously the gameplay, there's obviously the graphics, there's obviously all the other factors that actually make sense for a game, not just some pronouns you can choose in a video game. And so, how would I actually rate this game? I don't know, maybe like a 5 or 6 out of 10. It's not like a review, but that's kind of my thoughts on Starfield. If you played Starfield, if you're a fan of Bethesda games or whatever, let me know in the comments because I would like to hear your thoughts on that. And we'll definitely will link the whole thing with Skyrim. I won't play the clip because I'll just drag this topic out. So once we get outside of the whole idea of Starfield as a whole, how what else am I going to talk about in the episode? Well, I did actually watch Ahsoka now. As I'm recording this, I would have watched Ahsoka like 2 days ago, but I haven't watched this entire series. I'll just give you my first impressions and rundown sort of thing. Before I do that, I just do want to preface this by saying that I actually have talked about Star Wars before on this podcast. I kind of have shared my thoughts on, the Star Wars movies before. I've talked about Mandalorian and all these other series in my reviews, like Andor and stuff like that, saying they're very good. So when it comes to like Ahsoka itself, for me, Ahsoka is an alright series that definitely feels a bit slow, and there are slight things that I'm not entirely sure of because this series obviously it focuses on Ahsoka that kind of relates back to like the Rebels and the Clone Wars series that I've never ever watched before. I think I watched like a few episodes of the Clone Wars or maybe the first season, I can't remember, but I've never seen Rebels, and it is actually the same actress that played the Ahsoka character from one of the Mandalorian seasons. And so I think the series is okay. There's like the first episode's like an hour long, I think, and it's kind of like a prologue to kind of showcase what's happening, what's unfolding afterwards, and all of that, and what happens in between that. There's this mention of this guy called Thrawn, which maybe will become more relevant as I watch the series, but as of right now, I'm not entirely sure who Thrawn is, so there's definitely that element in there. But to kind of bounce off of what I'm trying to say here, I might as well grab some reviews from like critics and some audience just to kind of contrast between how I thought the series was okay, comparing it to people who are saying it's like the best thing ever. Because I've even heard this guy on YouTube saying this is one of the stronger Star Wars series, and we'll definitely have to see. So we'll do Rotten Tomatoes, right? I'll just grab that right now. Right, so Ahsoka, right, let's go, right, so here it says if it'll load, right, it says 86% for critics and 71% for audience, so that's quite an interesting contrast, so they're enjoying it more than audience, right, so there's this one review that says the result is a wait, what does that say? Ta, tan, tantalizing blend of some of the most loved aspects of Star Wars past alongside some grade A newcomers, all firing at a rippling pace from the outset, right? So there's some terminology these people are using kind of weird, but they're just kind of saying how they feel, I guess. But then there's somebody who's saying Ahsoka has been a slowly accumulating disaster with its few bright spots, overwhelmed by a series so interesting and entertaining, the unconverted that it defeated my weekly struggle to enjoy it. So there's those two contrasting reviews right there. So somebody's saying it's amazing. There is some classical Star Wars elements in there that I did actually notice because in the series they have the lightsabers and all of that, the stuff you come to love about Star Wars sort of thing. So Ahsoka's expansive storytelling and cinematic production values with it will appeal to casual and die-hard Star Wars fans alike, but the only latter camp is likely to appreciate its lore-land laden story, right? So talking about the lore and how it relates back to Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, I guess. And then there's somebody who's saying that, like, what were they saying here? So they're saying Ahsoka was a highly enjoyable show for the most part, and an undeniable delight for Star Wars Rebel fans. The finale left a lot to be desired from a story standpoint, but we remain hopeful that a second season will rectify at least some of its issues. So that's somebody that's watched the entire series, and his name is Mark Cassidy. Somebody in saying here, Dave Filoni, the creator of Ahsoka, understands Star Wars and telling a good story. So there's that one. There's no disconnect. There's no disconnect between the live action characters and animated counterparts. and while Dave Filoni and the company take care to preserve the continuity between the show and its predecessors, newcomers will get a good idea of who these people are. Right, so there's definitely a pattern here going on where you're starting to see people saying that this is amazing, and then there's people saying that's super duper like horrible, or they're just a missed opportunity, or there's a lot left to be desired. And so I'm not going to go through this entire thing, but my initial impressions was the fact that I thought the series was very, very slow, and maybe with a few more episodes I could get a bit more interested in it. But I'm not saying that the series was actually bad by any means. Like, it was watchable. I could sort of understand what was going on. So maybe later on, if I understand Thrawn a bit more, maybe we'll see that. Maybe I might have to watch a recap of like the Star Wars Rebels series on YouTube or something to kind of understand it a bit more. So outside of Starfield and Star Wars stuff, right? So a bit of sci-fi gaming and sci-fi television. What else have I got to talk about for you? Well, I do actually want to dabble into Yami's new track, obviously. It feels like a bi weekly basis at this point, where every 2 weeks I definitely dabble into this. So I will play the track for you. It's on Spotify and it's on YouTube as well. So I will grab it on YouTube, or actually even Spotify, because it's just easier. Just avoid all the ads, right? So it's called the Dank 90s, and this is what it sounds like. I'll put it right up to full volume, right? Okay, put it closer, right? I don't know what it's saying either, to be honest. I really don't understand it. Let me actually fast forward it a bit, right? So how do I feel about the song itself now that I've kind of played it for you? Well, the song is okay, but if you remember the couple weeks ago, that I'll squeeze you, it's like at the bright as light, at the bright as light. He kind of just has like this deep Russian voice with this hard bass beat behind it, and that's what he kind of does in this song as well. It's just the same stuff he did from a couple weeks ago. There was also like these AI art images inside of the video, and there's like these like transitions where it felt like a PowerPoint presentation. So it was kind of weird. Like when you have like, most of his songs, right, even if like some of his mediocre songs, right, he usually just sticks to one image and one image only. So that once he does this kind of thing where he has like one image of him with like a Burger King or something, and then like these pizzas, and then it's like these Halloween with all these cars, and there's all these images floating around in the screen, and it's kind of confusing. Like if he just sticks to one image, that's decent. And there is people in the comments that were saying it's like a banger, it's a masterpiece, it's like the best of the century. Like every time Yami puts a track out, right, there's people that really do that, right. He did a YouTube Shorts of it, which is good because then I can show you what the AI art was kind of like, right? That's it there. Right there, it's there, right? It's like these images for audience I'm just showing, right? It's like these plague doctors or something. If you can see that, right, there's like contrasting images. It's like these contrasting images of his actual tracks. So, other than that, right, it's an okay song. I just felt like some of his previous tracks were trying to do something a bit different, so that once he tries to do like this stereotypical Russian stuff, it's not a very big fan of it. And I did actually think that like a while ago, I was like, oh, Slavic, it should be Slavic hard bass. Yes, it should be, but there's just a certain way in which it kind of just gets a bit stale, and certainly in this situation it does, because when he did 556 with the American accents, it kind of mixes up the flow, and it was actually on beat. So other than that, right, other than Starfield, other than Ahsoka, other than Yami's new track, what else do I have to talk about for you? Well, I actually do want to talk about how I did go to Burger King yesterday as I'm recording this, right? And if you know about the James Ramblin' show, I have actually talked about Burger King before, and I had this like strange scenario where I did actually have this encounter, this weird event that happened at Burger King. Might link this in the description when for the clip of talking about this Burger King thing, but pretty much what happened, right, is all I did was just I had some Burger King, right, that kind of stuff. But then it was like £16 for this now. If you're in New Zealand, that'd be like $32 for like two burgers, two sets of chips, and like two drinks, right? And they didn't give me straws either, so it's kind of a strange thing. And to say the least, like there's nothing else to say other than that. Like Burger King is just your average, by the books, kind of mid, kind of like mediocre like restaurant or takeaway where if you've got nothing else to eat, you just eat this for the sake of it. Just kind of like McDonald's, it's on the same level, I suppose. It's just kind of okay. So there's definitely that. I do also want to talk about how I did actually have this golfing experience last week. Now, I didn't get to talk about this because it was on a Sunday, and obviously, you know that I put this out on a Saturday, so I'm pretty sure the place was called Golf It, and I had to like walk for 40 minutes with my dad and Stuart, and then my mum and my sister were there as well. They were walking a different way, took them less time, all that kind of stuff. So we went there. I actually had some hot dogs, right? You had some ice cream later. So we were playing golf, right? And you just hit it into the hole, and there's all these different like ones where you have like there's like a blue, there's like blue and like this other one that's like orange, like where you put all the stuff and there's like 8 courses and you have all the scores obviously, and you get like there's like a hole in one. But there was a point where I actually almost thought I had a hole in one, right? Like I think it was like 1 point, right, where I thought I had a hole in one, but it wasn't even that, right? So where is it? Golf at Glasgow, right? Is that it? Yes, it is. I found it, right. So wait, is that even it? Right, Golf at Glasgow, right? That's what they actually looks like. So yeah, that definitely looks familiar. So there it is there, right? So it's like this blue kind of track looking thing with like the pink stuff in there as well. There's somebody even reviewed it online of Golf Fit, right? Got the first review of Glasgow's latest golf facility, right? So he says here, what is that even? There's actually all these other different golf things that were in it as well. Like there was like the golf adventure, and then there was all these other golf like things you could do in it. I don't know if I can. I don't think I can remember it entirely, but there was a lot there to do pretty much. And there was also this guy like singing some songs as well. He played quite a few songs on the guitar, and so there was kind of like a few things going on that day. My kind of little golfing experience, a little bit different to everything else we talked about. So there's that, right? There's that golf experience, but I do actually wanna, for the last kind of topic here, there was this interesting like current event that's actually happening with like the idea of banning smoking. Now, I don't think I've even talked about smoking tons on the James Ramblin' show. Maybe, like, the only time I even remember talking about smoking was, like, when I talked about, like, weed with Ben and Lee and how, how I think about that, I guess. But, so, to give you a bit of context here, what actually is this whole thing to do with, right? So, I'm pretty sure I heard on the radio, like, yesterday or the day before that, like New Zealand was trying to ban this like smoking for like 30-year-olds or older or something like that. So we'll get the New Zealand one, but there's actually also the British version of this too. So there's a ban smoking NZ, right? The UK Prime Minister Richie Sunak. Oh, why is it going Richie Sunak, right? Is smoking going to be banned in New Zealand? Right, it says from July 1st, 2024, decreasing the numbers of retailers able to sell smoked tobacco products. From April 1st, 2025, reducing the amount of nicotine that is allowed in smoking tobacco products. From January 1st, 2027, prohibits the sale of smoked tobacco products to anyone born or after 1 January 2009, Right, so there's that, right? Now this is kind of random given the fact that this was like actually on like the Scottish radio stations about New Zealand. But the thing is, right, there actually was this whole thing to do with how Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, was actually going to ban this, right? So it says here on Google that the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on Wednesday announced his government aims to raise the smoking age by 1 year every year so tobacco would end up never being sold to anyone born on or after the 1st of January 2009, following New Zealand's example with its world's first law introduced in December last year. So that's what that has to offer. But how do I feel about this, right? To be honest with you, right, when it comes to like this whole thing, I mean, this is pretty much against human rights here. I mean, we talked about freedom of speech a while back on the James Allen show, but to give an example of this, right, it's kind of restricting what somebody has to say, right? You don't kind of do that, and so when you restrict somebody's rights to smoke, it's kind of weird, right? Like, I mean, smoking is bad for you; it causes lung cancer, etc., etc., etc. But it's somebody's personal choice, and so when you decide to like be like, oh my god, we got to get rid of this, and smoking has been going on for years and years and years now. And I mean, there was even this like whole thing to do with trying to ban alcohol in the prohibition era that obviously never happened because people are still drinking alcohol. So it's kind of a strange scenario. You've also got to consider that a lot of people vape nowadays, so you've got that in the mix. So there's a lot of that stuff that's happening, and honestly, man, overall, it's a strange little topic. It's nothing like it's not a spicy, controversial take. I mean, it's literally pretty obvious that if you ban smoking, right, you're taking away somebody's rights to have a personal choice. And I honestly have never smoked in my life. And just because I don't like smoking doesn't mean other people can't. So other than that, really, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the James Ramblin' Show where I did have to record this again, but we recorded it in the morning and we still managed to freaking do it like no bother. I was just recording it this early in the morning. It's like 10:30 right now, whatever. Might as well have some breakfast. So yeah, see you next week for another episode. This will come out regular time as per usual. So yeah, bye, 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 bye.